Great. Well, I think we'll get started so we can wrap up around 4:30. Thank you everybody for showing up to this free CLE for Omaha Bar Association members. If you have any ideas on other CLE, please let me know. We're putting on a lot of CLE this year, and we need all the ideas that you have for us. So I'm Dave Summers, Executive Director of the Omaha Bar Association. Welcome. We have Mike Dyer, longtime Omaha Bar Association member, as our speaker today. Mike is also part of our lawyer referral service program with Omaha Bar Association. He is a past NYPD officer, and he has given this presentation to police officers over the years and to the Lincoln Bar Association. So we're very excited to have him here today. His daughter is also here with us, and she's a doctor in residency here in town. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and I'm going to be doing the camera work, so if I'm moving around, don't pay attention to me. Mike Dyer. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Don't trip, don't trip.
Nope, it's all good. I get a lawyer, I'm good. Anyway, I'm Mike, and this is a client and attorney self-care kind of presentation, so there's going to be a few things I'm going to repeat a few times, so if you want to have your phones out and you want to take a note on something that might be catchy, do it. I don't have a handout, but you'll catch on as I go along. We all deal with people on their worst days, right? They don't come to us when they're happy. And what we want to try and do with this presentation is help make those bad days just a little bit better. My wife, Elizabeth, Emily's in the middle there, and then it's my daughter Danielle on the left with her cat, and Sarah. Danielle's a librarian at an Elkhorn, and Sarah's an opera singer, and Emily's a medical doctor. She's going to be going to UNL for her fellowship. And my wife and I met in law school at Creighton, and I graduated on May 19th, 1990 at 10 o'clock, and 3 hours later she married me. So the reason I remember my graduation date. Before I was a lawyer, I was a cop in New York City, and I still go back every year. Let's see. This is a picture from this year, and that's a picture from last year. So this guy here is an Omaha cop who came back with me, and that's my old partner, and he really is 7 foot tall, so I've got to spend time playing cops and robbers with. Self-care has been defined as a process of establishing behaviors to ensure holistic well-being of oneself. Thankfully, microphone works better that way. Yep, okay. To ensure holistic well-being of oneself, to promote health, and to actively management of illness when it occurs. Individuals engage in some form of self-care daily with food choices, exercise, sleep, dental care, all those other things. Why do people help other people? We all got into this profession to help people, right? Feel good when we do a good day's work and we've done something right. One reason would be reciprocity, quid pro quo. Another would be special selection, proximity relationship. If you go to the same church or you work out in the same gym, you play cards, you have neighbors or coworkers. Genetic selection, family members. Indirect reciprocity is the most powerful. Will help you if you're seen as a desirable person to assist. You have a good reputation, you help others, we want to help you. Group selection helps you further a greater good, much like everybody. What I'm going to talk about is the ethical considerations of dealing with suicidal clients. Information to help someone and maybe even save a life. And I've been able to do that a few times just with this knowledge. Helping your client and helping yourself as an attorney. The statistics from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in 2021 has increased from 45,000 to 48,000. These numbers are just crazy. In 2017, 47,000 people died by suicide. A veteran died, military active and veterans, 23 die a day, every day. In 2014, suicide was the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. Now it's the 12th. It was 12%, but the percentages and the numbers don't work out, so that was a mistake. Sorry. Suicide was the 11th leading cause of death in 2021. And what they can estimate is 7.7 million people have attempted suicide. So, with an estimated 1.4 million people in 2014, the age-adjusted suicide rate for 2017 was 14 per 100,000. The rate for suicide is highest in middle-aged white men in particular. In 2021, men died by suicide 3.9 times more than women. In 2021, firearms accounted for 54.64% of all suicidal deaths. 2021, white males accounted for almost 70% of the suicidal deaths. On an average in 2017, there were 129 suicides per day. In 2020, there were 130 suicides per day. These numbers, as we go through them, you get lost, right? It's like drinking out of a fire hose. These are just crazy high numbers, but they're individuals. What we want to look for with suicide is to be aware that there are invitations that somebody might be suicidal. And what this takes is just listening a little closer and looking for a couple of the signals that I'm going to give you here so that when you see them, you can ask follow-up questions. So the signs would be, if you find somebody starts giving away their possessions just for no reason, somebody's withdrawn from all the family and all their friends, they start to abuse alcohol or drugs, they have an extreme behavior change one way or another, they start reckless behavior, self-mutilation, and the feelings that they have start to really get negative about absolutely everything. They become desperate, angry, guilty of everything, lonely, sad. They feel hopeless, and they feel helpless, like they can't do anything about it. Some of the thoughts of people who are going through the process of contemplating suicide would be, I wish I was dead, as if that's going to solve the solution. But rationally, in their mind at that moment, they think it is rational. I won't be needing these things anymore. They start handing away their stuff, and it's like, they're not going to be here to use them. They don't need them. I can't keep my thoughts straight. People don't get sleep for 2 or 3 days. If they say that everyone will be better off without me, you hear these invitations, is what we call them. It's an invitation to have a conversation, to start asking a follow-up question. Now, you don't have to. I mean, this is all optional if you want to, and if you choose to, this is what you're looking for. When somebody else completes suicide, and the person's response is, now I know what they're going through, that would be another one of those signals or thoughts. And you start to see physical changes, a lack of interest in their appearance, or change or loss in sex interest, disturbed sleep, change or loss of appetite, physical health complaints. All of those signals, as they start to come up, they're not going to come up in any order, but you're listening now to say, hey, that's something I heard at that presentation. Maybe let me just listen a little bit closer now. After you start to review the conversation you're having with this person, or just listening to the first couple of hints about what they're going down, you want to ask the question directly, are you having thoughts of suicide? Once you put that out there, It's like taking a deposition. You ask the question, and you quietly wait because the person can't help but have to fill that dead space. You want to use that with a person when you ask this question. And let them fill the space any way they want to. If you get an answer that's positive, that they do want to complete suicide, you want to ask, do you want to kill yourself? Now that's different than do you want to hurt yourself? You want to ask a very direct question. Do you want to kill yourself? Again, you really want to wait for the answer and listen to that person, because this is probably the first time that person's been listened to in quite a while. You want to ask the person why they want to kill themselves without judgment at all. When you're talking to the person, repeat back what they're saying. In this example, so what I hear you saying is you've broken up with your girlfriend, and that's why you want to kill yourself. Tell me about that. And listen. A few things not to do. Don't look at what you, don't say to the person, look what you have to live for. Okay, you have a nice house, you have this great car, you have this or that. Those very things that you point out as assets could be the reason they want to kill themselves. Please don't make light of it. Now, I've been doing this since 1992. 1990, I should say, with a law license, and my wife and I opened up the practice in 1992. And I remember working with this because I'd gotten out of the police department before this job, and talking to older attorneys about how do you deal with suicidal clients. And one attorney actually used the expression, if you're going to go kill yourself, do it outside and don't make a mess in my office. Really happened. The guy was probably not around anymore, it was 30 years ago, but that was his opinion of how to deal with it. If they have a plan, you want to find out that they have a current suicidal plan. How prepared are you? How soon do you want to do this plan? And as you see, these questions are going to naturally unfold if you're having a conversation and you're listening. So you just want to make sure that you keep that ball rolling and you're asking the kind of questions that will elicit that response to get the person to talk as much as they can. Do they feel that they have a pain that sometimes it's unbearable? If they do, you're not the Band-Aid. And I'm going to mention this a few times in this presentation. We're attorneys. Right? We're not doctors, we're not therapists, we're not psychiatrists. But the resources that are available to help people who are suicidal are medical doctors, clergy, therapists, or anybody else who puts themselves out in that position to clinically assist people who are going through this kind of an issue. We're not qualified. I mean, in a way, we're qualified to figure out there might be an issue, but we're not qualified to fix it. And we don't want to be the Band-Aid people call back constantly thinking that they've done what they needed to. Okay. So, January 82 through December 85, I was a cop in New York City. I was in the Special Operations Division and Tactical Patrol Force. And I retired 1985, and I looked at the list of people who signed in, and I saw that I was the only one whose bar number started with a 1, but that's okay. That's all right. Having a good life. So I've been retired on a permanent total disability since 1985. I returned to school, went to Long Island University, and moved to Nebraska to attend law school in 87, graduated in 1990. And I still stay active with a few New York City Police Department organizations. PAPA is a police organization providing peer assistance, and I've been with them since 2007 or 8. The Retirees Mobilization Plan, and they had an unfortunate acronym. They called it Retirees Officers because Ron didn't really work well. The Emerald Society, I've marched in every parade in St. Patrick's Day, except for the COVID ones, since 1982. And then the Brotherhood of the Fallen. I attend funerals for any law enforcement that's within usually driving distance, and I put my old police uniform on and it means a lot to the families. There are 13 different brotherhoods around the country, and we'll get 25 to 40 cops who show up together to show the families the support. They don't know who I am. They don't need to know who I am. I'm just that guy from New York, as far as they know. After 9/11, with all the cops who had no plans to do anything, they organized the Retirees Mobilization Plan. And it took about 11 years for something to come up to actually activate it. It was Superstorm Sandy, and all the retirees who'd signed up, we went back and we helped out for a few days. And it was a good feeling because we can participate. We didn't do a lot of stuff, but we were able to spend a few days doing some stuff that the other cops can go back and do patrol with. Brotherhood of the Fallen, like I said, I've been doing these kinds of presentations for years, or these kinds of funerals for years. That one at the end is, there it is. That was a funeral up by North Dakota, and just a different world up there, but we all feel the same pain. The Papa Group is organization that was started in 1995. They had 26 police officers complete suicide. And if you hear the word complete, it's usually not. People always say commit suicide. We try to avoid saying commit suicide because the commitment part is something that we don't want people locking into their mind. Completing is the verbiage that they'd like people who think these things through. They listen and they talk and they assist their fellow officers when required in securing the right professional services. It's set up for the 100,000 plus cops that are active and retired who all have the same insurance. Begins with peer officers who take the call, and they work with a system. So if I'm a peer officer, I'll block my number and call the person back, and then there's a clinician who I can relate how that conversation goes with. And everybody's available in a tight area with lots and lots of people. And that's the problem with bringing it to Nebraska. Not everybody's got the same insurance. But there are aspects of it that I picked and chosen so I can talk to cops around the country and I can talk to lawyers around the country. Cops have always tended to think of themselves as problem solvers and not people with problems. And it looked better on my small screen, but that's me on a subway. That's the training I go to twice a year. They have the therapy dog, and they brush over the things that people constantly need to have on the top of their mind awareness. Much like I'm repeating some of the things here, what to look for. We do that. We do role playing. We just make sure people are at their sharpest when need be, because it's truly life and death. I also go out when I'm in New York, and since I'm an old guy, I can walk up to cops and say, "Hey, here's my old shield number." And same thing with the tax number. It's just like a bar number. It's like, oh, you're fine. Anyway, when you're older than everybody in the picture, and they weren't born when you're retired, it gets proportional. Can anybody think of another group of professions that might think the same way as cops? Pretty much like everybody in this room, right? Many people have considered counseling as a stigma, as a career threatener. According to the PAPA statistics, seeking support in averting a crisis is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. We help people who are strong to stay strong. I did the training in 2008, and like I said, I go back twice a year. And the program has gotten to the point where in 2015, they only lost 4 cops to suicide that year. There are white papers out there about mental health and suicide among first responders, revealing that police officers and firefighters are more likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty. And There were at least 103 firefighters suicides and 140 police officers suicides in 2017 compared to the line of duty deaths of 93 firefighters and 129 cops. I spoke to an Omaha police lieutenant who personally knew 3 police officers who had killed themselves, who were killed in the line of duty, but they knew that 4 people who they worked with completed suicide. What are we dealing with as attorneys? When we're dealing with people going through the tragedies, how many people have had a client complete suicide? And those are the ones you know about. A lot of times the stigma you won't even find out why. Does anybody know an attorney who might have completed suicide? It happens to us because we're helpers. We're the people who we look to help others, and because we're helpers, we never want to perceive ourselves as a victim. And to call us a victim is almost to call us a dirty word. And since we're the helper, we're very resistant to getting help. It's just a natural thing. It's like, oh, I'm here to help, I'm here to help. Well, you know, there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but Stephen Covey has that's 7 things of something, but he talks about the sharpening the saw, and the example that he uses is you use a saw and you're starting to cut wood over and over and over, and the blade gets dull. You can put in more effort to cut that wood, but if you stop, sharpen the saw, you'll get a lot more work done with a lot less effort. I've been doing this because I became a cop to help people. I became a lawyer to help people. I do some things really well, but not everything, and I need to know what my limitations are. Like I said earlier, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a medical doctor, and I have to know I have my limitations. The PAPA program can't be replicated, like I said earlier, because of the numbers of doctors. And as I mentioned earlier also, we're not mental health clinicians or providers. We just don't do that. I am the only NYPD person within 1,000 miles, so they call me the Maytag repairman if you remember old commercials. Well, maybe you see on reruns. But I can't be the Band-Aid either. I'm an attorney and a counselor at law, just like you guys are. But I possess certain skills, and I don't possess a set of skills or training to fix the problems I'm confronted with. And I always need to keep that in mind for myself and to tell that to the client. I don't possess those talents and skills that you need. You need a professional who's going to be better qualified than me. There's a few things that once you start to get those signals or those invitations to talk about what this person might be thinking about for suicide, you want to ask a few follow-up questions like, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself or others right now? Follow up with that. It's just like a deposition. Let the air stay quiet. Let them say as much as they want to, and then just take their words and ask them again. What was the last time you felt that way? Do you have a plan to do that right now? If they have a plan, is it lethal? Can the client die? Were there previous attempts? And how recent were those previous attempts? If the client seems suicidal, ask some of the questions of how would you do it? Are you alone right now? Where are your weapons now? Of course, I started doing this when I was talking to just cops and everybody had weapons. And, it's one of those questions that you want to ask in a regular tone of conversation. So, yeah, weapons, where are your weapons right now? As if you're assuming, we're all on the same page. Acronyms in the police departments are taking those civil service tests are really important. It's like when you took the ACT, remember this acronym in that one? So they've got some acronyms. The plan, the lethality, the availability, an illness or depression. Previous attempts, are you alone? Have you suffered a loss? or is there substance abuse? You can only ask those questions. You can only determine if they're suicidal by asking them very direct questions. And they're not comfortable to ask. You've got to stop and ask a very direct question. Do you want to kill yourself? Not a question you very, very often ask. And then you have to quietly not fill the space. You have to let them. This gets into a little more detail of the plan, lethality. Can they die? How do they have a means of availability to carry out their suicide? Do they have a mental or physical illness? Is depression chronic or specific to a certain incident? How many attempts have they had? Are they alone? Do they have a support system? A partner? The alone part is something you really want to make sure that you get them with somebody, if you can. The loss, have they suffered a loss or a death of a job, loss of a job, or relationship, or self-esteem? Are they starting to use substance abuse, or drugs, or alcohol, or medicine because the doctor prescribed it to them? And is it current? Are they currently doing this? Is it chronic? The drinking part is something that crosses a lot of lines. And sometimes people don't even realize that what they're doing is a problem. They just think this is normal. This is the way it is. I remember talking to this girl when I was up in Harlem about what it was like to have my parents have a front yard that I got to cut the grass. She had no idea what it was like to have grass in the front yard. And if I tell you, when I was a kid, to get to my backyard, when I was really young in Brooklyn, I had to drive by 5 houses on my bike and go down a little alley. And I think we had a piece of grass about twice the size of this podium. And, you know, it's everybody's personal experiences. It's what we bring to the table. So people who are drinking regularly and they've never actually assessed if it's a problem, here's a couple of things you might be able to mention to them. Have you ever tried to cut down on your drinking? Have people been annoying you or criticizing you about your drinking? Have you ever felt bad or guilty about drinking? Have you ever had a drink in the morning, an eye-opener, just to steady your nerves? One answer, yes, it's a possible alcohol problem. More than one means it's highly likely that a problem exists. But the thing is with alcohol, if you don't hit it when it's hot, people think that they don't have a problem a few hours later. And if you can get somebody to realize that they do have a problem, you want them to address it immediately and hopefully get the attention that they need so they can't talk themselves out of why they need to. Now, when you're talking to these people, because you're an attorney, you're one of the privileged people to have confidentiality, right? Doctors and clergy and us. When it's nobody's business but your business, they want to keep it that way. Okay, everything we try to do is as confidential as possible, just so that person gets the help that they need. You can't talk somebody into getting treatment. They have to want to do it. Self-care is not synonymous with being self-indulgent or being selfish. Self-care is having a better quality of life by taking care of yourself. It means you take care of yourself so that you can be healthy. You can do a job. You can help and care for others. You can do all the things you need to and you want to accomplish in one day. But you can't be the Band-Aid to somebody else who wants to say that, well, I'll just call you instead of going to my doctor. Or I'll just call you instead of doing what you told me to do is, see this person or that person. Self-care includes maintaining a regular sleep routine, eating healthy, spending time in nature, doing a hobby you enjoy, or expressing gratitude just for the simple things in life. I mean, it's going to get warmer. Just to get out at lunchtime and just get that fresh air in your lungs. I mean, it's just little things like that. Emotional self-care is self-talk. You can take a weekly bubble bath. You can say no to things that are unnecessarily stressful for you. We find ourselves doing things that are stressful, and you say, why am I even doing that? It's causing me all this anxiety. It's not a bad idea to reassess it. Now that we're mentioning it, and it's kind of at the top of our mind, if something you're doing is really annoying, rethink, do I really have to do that? Do I have to have that as part of my life? Give yourself permission to take a pause. Set up a weekly coffee date with a friend. Somebody you haven't talked to since law school. Somebody you haven't talked to since whenever. Physical self-care, such as prioritizing sleep, adopting an exercise routine you can stick with, choosing healthy and nutritious foods over highly processed ones are going to help, but don't overdo it. Take small steps. Spiritual care, such as attending a religious service, spending time in nature, meditating, incorporating regular actions of kindness into your day, or even keeping a gratitude list of not only what you're grateful for, but what you're grateful for not having. Like cancer, you can fill that list forever. Meditation is something that people have been doing for years. And it's only a matter of closing your eyes for 10 seconds, maybe a minute. Just feel the air come in your nose, feel it come into your abdomen and come back out. Quietly, thinking about nothing but just breathing is one way people do it. Silently thinking about nothing, clearing your head of thoughts. There are readings you can do in the morning when you get out of bed. There's different religious or spiritual daily reminders. There's a program called Hollow that I'm Catholic and I listen to that. It's a 10-minute starter at the beginning of the day, and then they do a gospel that's read in church, and then they also have a 10-minute evening thing. Just evaluate your day. And after you've evaluated your day 4 or 5 times in a row, you start to think, well, I'm running into a bit of a repeat here. Maybe I should adjust this or that, because I'm actually taking the time to think about what I'm doing. Self-care can be temporary. Dining with a friend, go to the zoo with a friend, take a walk with a friend. The enduring stuff is practicing mindfulness every day, a day at a time, reading, daily reflections, all kinds of other things that are available for you to do yourself. Self-care can look different to everybody, but it counts as self-care if the behavior promotes health and happiness for you. You want to turn chores into self-care if you can. One thing people do is make the bed every morning. You start your day out doing one thing right. It seems to calm your day and gives you a sense of accomplishment. It's like brushing your teeth. Got that done. Not as a chore, but as something that I'm going to take a minute. If you're in the shower, take a few extra minutes. Instead of your monkey brain going crazy and all those thoughts that you're having at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever time you get going, calm down. Feel the emotion of physical water hitting you, the warm water, and what that feels like. Feel the sensations of what you're doing. Just long enough to slow down. Exercise. People who exercise 2 8 hours a day throughout their lives reduce their risk of dying by 30%. I'm not one of those people, but other people are. Finding purpose. According to research behind a May 2019 JAMA Network Open, having a strong life purpose was associated with decreased mortality too. Eating a diet filled with 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day was associated with lowering the risks of mortality, especially from heart-related issues. Sleeping is something nobody gets enough of, right? And does anybody get too much sleep? No, it doesn't happen, right? But if you start to work on if you have less than 7 hours a night of sleep, it was linked with higher mortality. But 10, 15 hours is too many. Try and stay in bed 8, 9 hours. Set your clock, get to bed early enough so that you can actually go to sleep and when you get up in the morning after you've had 8 or 9 hours of sleep, which is unusual, right? Instead of 4 or 5 sometimes, right? And you got kids and you have all these demands. You got to take care of yourself. Getting outside, time in green space alone, just being out in the green space, lowers mortality rates. Cardiovascular disease, number one cause of death in the U.S. Heart disease and strokes are crazy high. 1 in 4 adults reported achieving physical activity and exercise recommended by the U.S., which means 3 out of the 4 adults don't. Again, I'm in that category. I get a little bit. Various research studies over the past couple of decades indicate that more than 80% of the cardiovascular events may be prevented by a healthy lifestyle and management of known cardiovascular risks. Starting self-care is not going 100 miles an hour into 10 different programs. Determine which activities bring you joy, replenish your energy, and restore your balance. And you're probably thinking, I thought he was going to talk about suicide. And you're probably thinking, where are we going with this? The reason I'm bringing this stuff up and intermingling it with how you can help other people is by helping yourself. You know, when you get on a plane, they say, before you try to help a child, help yourself. Start small by choosing one behavior you would like to incorporate into your routine in the next week, just one. Build up on the practicing that behavior every day for a week. Reflect on how you feel. Add additional practices when you're ready. You don't have to keep doing everything and piling on. Get support through shared practices from loved ones or a coach or a licensed professional like a therapist or a dietitian, or through your healthcare plan, community, or workplace. Life's essentially updating, enhancing the American Heart Association's construct on cardiovascular health. Again, sleep duration is now considered to be an essential component. Other health and life factors in the checklist, which were provided by the previous 7 items that they scored, are nicotine exposure, physical activity, diet, weight, blood glucose, cholesterol, and blood sugar, and blood pressure. The new sleep metric suggests 7 to 9 hours of sleep for optimal cardiovascular. When's the last time everybody got 9 hours of sleep? Not so many. Okay. And it's just something to shoot for, you know. Practice self-care. Doesn't need, you have to be a heavy lift right out of the gate. It can be just one step at a time. A few ideas that can ease you into a self-care journey would be starting each day by paying attention to your breathing for 5 minutes and setting an intention for the day. Eating breakfast. Who has time for breakfast, right? Reflecting on what you're grateful for each night. That's a tough one, especially when you start to do something every day and you start thinking, what am I grateful for today? Or what is it that I could have done better? And you say, thinking to yourself, I've repeated that now 4 or 5 times. Maybe I should make an adjustment. Put your phone on airplane mode for a half hour each night before you go to bed and release yourself from the flurry of notifications. When I was retired, I was 24 years old, and I was looking at doing something other than sitting on my dad's couch drinking beer and watching TV, mainly because my dad said I can't do that after a couple of weeks, so had to be something else. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I don't need to save people in the middle of the night. There's very few reasons we need to check our text messages at 1 o'clock in the morning professionally. And in order to be able to get a good night's sleep, my phone is 3 rooms away from where I sleep. I don't want to hear that phone. I'll get up in the morning, and if it was bad news, it'll be just as bad when I get out of bed. And I'm not going to be interrupted with that phone. Because you never know when you forget to turn the ringer off, and all of a sudden you're 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody sends you something, or you get your friend who makes the drunk call, or whatever it is. Call a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. So if you want to write one thing down before the end of this week, it's Wednesday. Call a friend you haven't talked for a while and just say, hi. Just thinking about you. How you doing? I was at this seminar and this guy said I should call one friend I haven't talked to, and you're my friend. Just do it. You'll feel a lot better. Take up some kind of a hobby that might be more relaxing. Pick a bedtime and stick to it. Now, because this is ethics, we've got to talk lawyer stuff. Rule 1.6 looks at the law. It says a lawyer may reveal information related to the representation of a client to the extent the lawyer reasonably believes. Everybody's read this stuff. We all pass the bar. We all know these things, right? To prevent crimes, prevent reasonable certain death, substantial injury. There's lots of other reasons. To comply with a court order, to detect or resolve conflicts of interest, inadvertent or unauthorized disclosures of unauthorized access. There's all kinds of things that we're allowed to. But the thing that I highlight is to prevent reasonable certain death or substantial harm. The Nebraska rules state that for purposes of... Thanks, Dave. For purposes of Rule 1.6, a lawyer-client relationship shall exist between a member of the Nebraska State Bar Association Committee on Nebraska Lawyer Assistance Programs or an employee of the Nebraska Lawyer Assistance Program and a lawyer who seeks or receives assistance through that committee or program. Have nothing to do with this organization, but this is something that you can talk to in absolute confidence that what you talk to them about is going to stay between you two. The disclosure to prevent death or bodily harm. I talked to when they had the Council for Discipline, I talked to them a couple of times about what kind of calls they get, and there's really no advisory opinions that they get. There's a lot of calls for primarily family law, followed by attorneys who are dealing with criminal defense attorneys and attorneys from many other fields. But when you're dealing with family law, you're dealing with people's whole life getting torn apart. These people are in the worst time of their lives, and they see sometimes no outcome. They just seem, and that's where you're looking for these kinds of signals. Keep turning it off. So you may or may not reveal. And that's really a choice that you have to make as an attorney. You're not going to get in trouble if you do, but you don't have to. A range of views from you're just talking silly, like I said earlier, you're going to kill yourself. Or if you want to say, I hear a couple of signals, I hear a couple of invitations to help somebody, then, this is somebody I want to help. The client comes to see us for an event in their lives they're never going to forget. 4:14, we're doing just fine. Get out of here on time, Tim. It's not the dirty plates in the sink that makes someone lose their cool. It's all the stuff that leads up to it. We take our clients the way we find them. Some are living paycheck to paycheck. Some have dysfunctional home lives. Now you add the injury or the criminal case or a divorce. And like I said, these people are not coming to share the joys of their lives with a stranger. They're coming at their worst times. So we all know about the attorney and the nuts and bolts of how to practice law, but what is the counselor part? You're an attorney and a counselor at law. So I got a license in New York and Connecticut and Nebraska, and it says right there, I'm a counselor at law. That's my New York license. We all know there are these privileges. We've already talked about them. And a client who dropped by my office one time just showed up. He wanted to bring a slander case. He was wrongly accused of an elder abuse. According to this guy, he was accused of taking money that he assured me he had permission to use. And then, because I don't do very much criminal law, I referred it to a different attorney. And then the client said, I might as well kill myself. That's one of those invitations we talked about. And I asked a few questions. The client wanted to figure out what to do. without hurting too much, without feeling physical pain. I asked about his prior attempts, prior hospitalizations, asked a few more questions. We talked for a while. I told him it was a serious matter, and I suggested I'd call the police. Now, this has changed since I put this together. Back a few years ago, there was a case against Douglas County, and now when he says, when the police show up, I'm going to tell them I'm not suicidal, you can still have the deputy show up and take that person if they had at one time said that they were suicidal, because the county spent a lot of money finding that out the hard way. I wound up seeing if he'd go to the VA because I really didn't have much power about him taking care of himself. It took a while for me to hear back from him, but he called me the next week. He had checked in. He'd taken care of himself. It was a very serious attempt. Don't be the Band-Aid. Every month, because I've got a private practice, I try to call my clients who I haven't contacted every month, 6 weeks. I just very simply say, hi, this is Mike, wondering how you're doing. I was talking to a 40-year-old guy about 2-3 months ago, because I've done this presentation for the Lincoln Bar Association 6 weeks ago, and the SWIL, Southwest Iowa Lawyer League, in February, middle of February. So this was January. And this guy said he's feeling better, but he couldn't pay his bills. He was getting short with his loved ones. So I actively listened, and I used his words in asking questions. So how should you talk to a potentially suicidal client? Forget about what the case is that you're working on. Are you feeling depressed? Go through the checklists. Think of what resources that person might have if they're a veteran, or if they're religious and they have clergy they can go to. Another instance, I was talking to an attorney, this is about 10 years ago, and he said, well, I have a choice between coming to work or going downstairs and getting my gun, so I came to work. So I'm a plaintiff's attorney, he's a defense attorney, I'm there trying to get money out of his pocket. I've got 30 different things to do that morning. And instead of doing the other 29, I stopped and I listened. And I knew a comment like that would be a red flag. I asked him a few questions. My morning went to heck, didn't matter. Sounded like there might be a problem. And if he had broken his arm, he would get it treated like a broken arm. And the potential outcome of this would be much worse if he didn't. I agreed to meet him. We had coffee a few hours later. A couple hours later, I drove him over to Emmanuel. He checked himself in. And they're not going to keep you forever. A few hours later, he said, thanks so much. He talked to the right people and got the right information he needed. Be aware of your own personal issues and get the help as you need it. We're all individuals. It's nobody else's business. I've got another website called hurtcop.com, and I have a lot of self-tests that you can do just to see if there are issues in your life that might need attention, because it's very difficult for us to judge ourselves. Any of the tests that you do on my website are not recorded. I don't care who you are, just do it. If you think there's an issue, get the help that you think you need. And I ran out of tape. Well, that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So, Mike, I hear a lot of asking questions, not getting into the fixing a problem mode is really where you want to live.
Right.
And these uncomfortable questions, giving them time to answer, but not leading to, all right, let's go get you help right now. Really listening to them, having them say out loud what they need, what's in their head,
right,
and that can help the situation.
Yes, because they're articulating what it is, and if you're articulating, yeah, I want to kill myself because my girlfriend broke up with me, and it sounded logical before you put it into words, and now it doesn't sound as logical. Or you're finding out that this person's very serious, and this event in their lives is something that is worth taking their own life over. Once you can get them to articulate what's going on, it'll help them realize that there is help out there, and they're more likely to get that help because they didn't see there was a problem before you brought it out. And you've got to let them develop their own issues, because first, you could be wrong. It could be the reason they want to hurt themselves. And secondly, because nobody's going to get help without being forced to get help, whether it's drinking, alcohol, drugs, depression. It's a matter of letting the people find their own point. And by respecting them enough to listen to what they're saying and being completely focused on them, very few people get that in their lives. You know, I mean, we have 5 minutes to do what we're going to do, and the next person will. No, at this point, the clock goes out the window. Anybody else?
One thing I did want to add, I have had conversations with Chris Offerly. I've known an attorney who was suicidal, and reached out to Chris Offerly at Nebraska Legal Assistance Program, and confidentially told him, I think this attorney needs to be reached out to. We reached out to the attorney. They met. They had a lot of conversations. He got help, and that's something that you can do instead of talking to Chris. And Chris, he's licensed in many of these processes to help people. And so, if you see the signs, reaching out to Chris to help another attorney that's potentially suicidal.
And family members. So many people who lose family members for reasons that we just can't fathom. But I lost a friend of mine who was also a cop in New York, and he had too much pain. He had shoulders, and he was dragged by a car. I didn't see it coming. I've been doing this for years at that point. And Mike Ducci killed himself. Left a note, apologized to the first responders. I didn't look for the signals either, but it can happen. There's no boundaries. It cuts across all classes. We're all susceptible. And it's that one time that you're going to get the information that I gave you that's now going to be in the top of your mind, in the awareness, and maybe you'll help somebody. And that's the only reason I do this. So if you can save somebody by just listening to them, you have no idea what good it's going to do. You might not find out for years or forever.
We'll put the slide deck up online so that it's available to anybody if they want to go find it. It'll be in our CLE on demand, and they can get those acronyms and those guides. We've got checklists in there. So
great. Well, thanks for putting up an old guy.